guys. I hope you're all doing well. So, my name is Brody Whited, and I am from Carson City, Pennsylvania. It's about 30 minutes north of Slippery Rock, and I'm a secondary ed history major. So, for this presentation, we're going to be discussing the movie we watched, Journeys with George. Honestly, it was kind of a debated topic as to whether or not we enjoyed this movie. It was fun, it was goofy, it was interesting seeing that side of George. But it was also like, can you believe that this man was our president? So I'm just going to get into a little bit of the basic information on the next slide, and then we'll go from there.
Into the film, we're going to do a little bit of basic information about the two main characters in the film. It begins with Alexandria Pelosi, who's a journalist, filmmaker, writer, and during this time while she was filming, she worked for NBC. She was nominated for 6 Emmy Awards for Journeys with George. Don't know how, did not love it, but it's fine. And she's a Democrat. So that was a very interesting part about the film because George is a Republican and they spent 360 days together. George called her his head cold that he couldn't get rid of, and she kind of acted like as a thorn in his side. She never really gave up and she asked the questions that nobody else was asking. She is the daughter of Nancy Pelosi, which was really cool. I did not even know that Nancy Pelosi had any daughters. She was Nancy Pelosi is the 52nd Speaker of the House of Representatives. She is kind of seen as the enemy of the Republican Party because she's so strong-minded, she knows what she wants, and she's willing to fight for what she believes in. So George Bush is who, of course, we follow along with. He is a politician, a businessman, and would, become the 43rd president of the United States. Spoiler alert. Um, George is a Republican, and he's so interesting to watch throughout the film because at the beginning he is just this goofy guy who's bowling for oranges down the plane and just, throwing snowballs and being crazy. And then, kind of throughout the movie, he becomes a person who is like well respected and is a little bit more conscious of what he's doing and what he's saying. And he's the son of George H.W. Bush, who's the 41st president of the United States. So he kind of had it in there with that last name.
Hey guys, my name is Sean Tobias. I am a secondary education major in history with a minor in secondary education. And I am from Monroeville, PA, and I'll be going over the movie summary slide here. So, for those of you who did not watch the movie recently or watched it and still have some questions about it, we put together a brief summary for Journeys with George starting 360 days prior to Election Day. Alexandria Pelosi joined the press corps for George Bush's presidential campaign in 2000. And as some of you might know, she is the daughter of the Democratic House Leader Nancy Pelosi. So at first, it might have been surprising to see a Democrat being this close and friendly with an opposing party president, but an obvious relationship quickly developed with the two. The movie acts as a personal documentary of the year, including behind scene activities, including travel, mainly in the press planes. But it really showed how a campaign process works. They mentioned pretty frequently the food options or the lack of food options. The movie also featured many interactions with George Bush, obviously, notably more positive ones near the end of the film, and we'll be able to go over that further. Um, Journeys with George also helps show the importance of interpersonal communications between people, the media, and politicians. Stated plainly, contact like this helps someone look more approachable, and as a candidate, Bush definitely benefited from this and needed help at first for sure. His campaign rallies garnered him a lot of popularity as well throughout the movie, as you can tell, but some of them were sparsely populated. And lastly, the film helped show how artificial rallies are as well. Rarely were these issues talked about at rallies, and throughout the entire film, whenever Pelosi pressed Bush on topics or hard questions, he would often deflect or say something funny to kill the topic. So, um, this movie was great, and so this is just a brief summary of Journeys with George. I'm going to join you guys again later in the presentation when I go over the discussion questions, but that's it for this one.
Hello, I'm Anthony Casciati. I'm a secondary education social studies major. I'm from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and I will be presenting the movie comparison slide. In Journeys with George, we get a behind the scenes look at what really goes into a presidential campaign, while in Bulworth, we get more of a satirical view of how a presidential campaign is supposed to be ran. It's almost like a parody that pokes fun at modern politics. In Journeys with George, we get to see a real and authentic version of George W. Bush before his presidency. An example of this would be when Bush decides to take a group of journalists with him back to his private ranch and feed them and talk to them. In comparison to Bulworth, where Jay Bulworth begins to be his truer self after a night of partying and realizing what he wants. And my last point is that the journalists that covered Bush respected him, even when they had to fly and travel countless hours on a plane and on a bus with him. While in Bulworth, crazed journalists and reporters, all they did was just try to get a story on Senator Bulworth and not really try to get to relate to him.
Hi everyone, my name's Rebecca. I'm a secondary education social studies major and I'm from Galloway Township, New Jersey. Today we're going to talk about the themes of Journeys with George. The first theme is the theme of friendship. Bush and Pelosi became frenemies throughout the whole film, taking their ups and downs of friendships. Pelosi also became friends with many other members of the press corps that were following Bush's campaign. Another theme we discovered was the theme of underdog. The closer they got to election day, nobody on the press corps thought that Bush would win the election, and even Pelosi took a poll with all the staff on her birthday party, and not many people thought that he could pull it out. Another theme that we saw is sacrifice. A lot of people on that press corps sacrificed an entire year, if not more, of their life to traveling around the country to follow Bush on his campaign trail. We even saw one of the guys miss the birth of his daughter and probably didn't get to see her until after the election, which is really sad. The last theme that we saw is coming of age. During this film, we saw President Bush shape into a more mature presidential candidate, and I forget exactly who said it in the movie, But towards the end of the film, somebody even acknowledged how he's changed throughout the campaign trail. In the beginning, he was very fun and goofy, but towards the end, he seemed more all about business and down to work and down to win the presidency.
Hi, it's Sean again. We're on to the discussion slide here, and since we can't get into groups in order to discuss these, I'm just going to read these off. Hopefully, you're able to think about these questions further and evaluate how they pertain to the movie and what your opinion on the topics are. For question number one, is the phrase "overnight is a lifetime in politics" still relevant in today's time, in today's politics? Number two, is there an obvious, subtle, or no bias from Alexandria Pelosi's regarding President Bush and his campaign? Number three, what is the importance of a president's ability to shake hands, and why is it brought up several times in the movie? And question number four, did George Bush's everyday demeanor or silliness surprise you? I think that question can get some pretty good answers either way, whether you think he was or was not, and how you support that. And the rest of the discussion questions are continued on the next slide, so I'll see you there. All right, continuing on with the next questions, we'll be going over the discussion questions 5 through 8. Number 5, did George Bush's attitude or level of maturity change from the beginning of the film to the end? This is another one where I'm sure we can get a lot of examples from the movie to be able to argue for or against this topic. Do you see any similarities with George Bush's campaign rallies and Donald Trump's campaign rallies for question number 6? Number 7, do you see any similarities between Alexandria Pelosi in Journeys with George and Michael Moore's documentaries talked about in Here's Looking at You, Chapter 3? Was Pelosi self-promoting or providing social satire? And number 8, do you think the press corps did a good or a fair job in filming the president? Or not a good job at all? Or would you have done anything differently in this situation? So, guys, this concludes our PowerPoint presentation. Thank you all for being understanding with us. Recording and not being able to interact with the class is a lot different for a lot of us, so thank you for being patient. And I hope you all enjoyed this presentation. I'm sure you've heard this from many people, but please keep updated with the CDC guidelines and stay safe during this trying time. And know that people are here. And thank you very much.